Hello everyone, I am Grandmaster Renato Quintiliano, and this is our series Study the Classics. Today we will see a very instructive game played by the world champion Vassily Smyslov. I really like Smyslov's games, and I have studied them a lot when I was younger. I don't know where you're from watching the video, but here in Brazil, many players have studied the book in which a small book in which Smyslov comments analyzes some of his games, because it was only one many years ago. It was one of the few books in Portuguese. So many of us have studied some nice games by Smyslov. This is one of them, against Rudakovsky in the final of the Soviet Championship in 1954, 1945, I guess. But okay, I think you all understood. So Smyslov played e4, then c5, knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes, knight f6, knight c3, d6, and we have the Sicilian Scheveningen, bishop e2, bishop e7, castles, bishop e3. If I'm not wrong, f4 is slightly more precise move order, but I'm not sure. But bishop e3 was played, then knight c6, this kind of transposes, f4. And here black played queen c7. Well, this is a very rich position in ideas for both sides, and black has a lot of moves here. e5 is an interesting option, changing the structure, bishop d7, or even a6. But queen c7 was the move in the game. And here queen e1 was played by Smyslov. It's a very typical maneuver. The queen aims to go to g3, creating some to be close of this king and help to create some ideas on the king side. Well, knight d to b5 here is usually harmless for black, because after queen b8, black is ready to play a6, and the queen is actually not bad on b8 at all. But king h1 is usually a nice prophylactic move here. It's a useful move for white. So, but he played queen e1, and here black reacted in the right way with knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and d5, fighting for the center. The detail here is that if f takes e5, d takes e5, queen g3, trying to pin this pawn, black can react very well with bishop c5. So this is just an opening detail to show you that the king would be better placed on h1. But as the king stands on g1, this move is possible. And after bishop takes, queen takes, king h1, king h8, avoiding rook takes f6. Here black is okay. So that's why also Smyslov plays bishop e3 here. And now black makes an imprecise move here. The first imprecision in the game was bishop e6. It was better to maneuver this bishop to c6. So black could play bishop d7 directly, aiming bishop c6, or start with a6, and in case of a4, bishop d7, and for example a5, bishop c6, with counterplay on e4. So this should be a balanced position, and the black is not worse. But maybe bishop d7 directly is more sensible. But he played bishop e6, and here Smyslov already spot a nice idea. He plays f5. He probably wanted to see what black would do, but black played bishop c4, and this is a mistake, because it allows a nice operation that gives already a serious positional advantage for white. So I suggest you to pause the video here and try to find which was Smyslov's idea here, how he reacted to this mistake, to bishop c4. Well, the problem here for black is that This is in here we have a typical Scheveningen and Najdorf structure, more Najdorf with the pawns on d6 and e5. So because of this structure, black has to be constantly aware of problems, strategic problems on d5, which is a weak square in the structure. So this is we use to call it the good bishop, the better black's better bishop, best bishop, because it keeps the d5 square under control. So you are still fighting for that square with this bishop on the board. It's very important when you play bishop c4, when you exchange this bishop. It's important to be sure that white won't be able to gain control over d5, because if white gains control over this move, over this square, then it will be a very pleasant position for white and a clear positional advantage. And that's exactly what happens here. It was better for black to keep this bishop on the board and play bishop d7, trying to reroute it to c6. Well, in this case, white would have this more or less the same idea as in the game, but it would not be so one-sided as we will see. Because after bishop c4, Smyslov played a very simple chess, and that's something I like in Smyslov games. He plays very simple chess, and you can understand each of his moves. They make a lot of sense, even in complicated positions, and you can understand his ideas. It's a very good feeling studying Smyslov's games, because here, for example, it's one of those cases. He plays bishop takes c4, queen takes c4, and bishop g5, and here immediately becomes clear that white is much better or red, because he will take on f6 and will install this knight on d5, where the knight can't be challenged by black's pieces, and it's a very powerful square. He attacks points in both flanks, and it's the best possible square for this knight. Very powerful in the center. And we call this square an outpost, because it's the outpost is one square of strategic importance in the game, and from which the piece cannot be expelled or attacked, kicked off, I don't know the term, by pawns. So this is the point. The knight is very strong on d5 because black cannot attack it using pawns. So it has a very solid place on d5. So what was the best move for black? The best path? Black should play bishop d7 here. But white would follow the same idea. Bishop g5. Now the bishop goes to c6. And after bishop takes, starting with king h1, because bishop c4 immediately allows queen b6. For example, king h1, rook ac8, now bishop c4. Well, white still has an advantage. This bishop should go to b3, and I think white will play moves like rook d1, but the d5 square is always under white's control. Even in case of knight d5 bishop takes, this light squared bishop is stronger than black's bishop because it keeps a lot of pressure on the king side. But okay, this would be positionally better for white, but the game goes on, so black can defend with correct play, I believe. On the other hand, as the game goes, after bishop c4, it's very easy for white. Bishop takes, queen takes, bishop g5. And here, strategically speaking, the game is more or less decided. I mean, white has to play precisely, has to make some good moves, but we will see that Smyslov never leaves the advantage slip by any move. So rook f e8, bishop takes f6, bishop takes, and he uses some simple tactics to seize the outpost immediately with knight d5, because he sees that after with the rook on e8, white doesn't need to take care of with this pawn, because after if queen takes c2, then rook f2. If the queen goes to a4, knight c7 wins an exchange. And if queen c6, rook c1, followed by knight c7 again. So knight d5 was played immediately, then bishop d8, and now c3. And here we can see that this knight simply is dominating the bishop. The knight is very strong, and because of this knight, black cannot coordinate very well his pieces, so black's position is already positionally lost here. The only thing that remains is to see how Smyslov will convert his advantage, but he does that in very instructive way. So b5, I mean, trying to look for some counterplay on the queen side, but this counterplay never comes, never really comes for black. He plays b3, queen c5 check, king h1, rook c8, and now very simple idea, rook f3, very natural, because with this bishop on d8, this bishop is kind of dividing black's play into the flanks, and the bishop prevents the black's rooks from communicating to each other, to be connected. So it's very difficult to transfer black's pieces from one side to one side to another, and because of that, white is able to bring the heavy pieces to the king side to start an attack. King h8 was played. I mean, f6 is a very sad move to make. You're basically closing your own bishop, and after rook h3, rook f8, queen h4, eventually white simply maneuvers all the heavy pieces to the king side, and eventually crashes throughout the defense, because black is not able to bring all his pieces to the defense, while white is able to bring all the pieces to the attack. But the game went king h8, and here is Smyslov. He plays very energically now with f6, because he understands it's already time to open the position. He could start with rook h3, for example, but now maybe black can play bishop g5 and then later f6, and the bishop will be slightly more active. It's surely better than on d8, so he doesn't want to allow that. So, and here, of course, bishop g5 would be bad because of h4 immediately, or queen g3 followed by h4. But after king h8, rook h3, it can be considered. But so by this reason, because of that, he plays f6, and g takes f6 was played. But in any case, after bishop takes, knight takes, g takes, queen h4, well, white exchanges the powerful knight by a winning attack with rook h3 or queen f6 coming. So the game went g takes f6, queen h4, and here rook g8, because if f5, knight f6, bishop takes, queen takes, and black is completely defenseless here. King g8, rook g3, king f8, rook g7, rook e7, rook takes h7, threatening mate. King e8, rook h8, king d7, queen takes f5, and black is going to lose the rook. Rook e6, queen takes f7, rook e7, queen f5, and when rook e6, rook h7, and this rook is lost. So rook g8, knight takes f6, rook g7. In any case, if bishop takes f6, queen takes rook g7, rook g3 transposes to the game. So rook g7, defending the mate on h7, but now Smyslov finds another precise move, rook g3, very nice. If rook takes queen h7, mate, this is the idea. And in case of something like, I don't know, queen f2, he had prepared another nice tactical idea, queen takes h7. And when rook takes, rook g8. But rook takes g7 is also fine, and if queen h4, rook g8 mate as well. So bishop takes f6, queen takes, rook g8. Black finally got rid of the bad bishop and the strong knight, but his position is simply hopeless. Rook d1. And I mean, there's nothing he can do against rook d6 and rook d8, for example. So he played d5, maybe trying to bring this queen back, but now rook takes g7, and the black resigned in view of rook takes, and rook d5, followed by rook d8. So this is a typical Smyslov game. Simple, easy to understand, and yet very, very instructive, very interesting, and you can learn a lot of a game like this. The main lesson here is how to take control over the outpost in such positions when you're able to leave your opponent with the bad bishop and the knight goes to d5. Usually white has an easy game and a very pleasant position. So Smyslov managed to demonstrate that in this game in a very, very easy and instructive way. Well, I hope you have enjoyed the analysis. It's not a super complex game, but I like it very much because I remember when I studied Smyslov's games by the first time, and they seemed so easy to understand. So his game seemed so harmonious, so logical. That was it was very nice. I learned a lot from them. Well, I hope you have enjoyed, and thanks for watching. As usual, see you in the next video.